So we all know blockchains are powerful, right? They're secure, they're decentralized, but for all that power, they kind of seem to exist in these separate little worlds, which leads to a huge question a lot of us are asking.
And that question gets right to the heart of the next massive challenges for this whole technology. I mean, the first wave of blockchains proved they could actually work. That was the hard part, right? Well, now the next generation has to prove they can work together.
All right, so let's dive into it. First, we're going to tackle this silo problem, why these chains are so isolated. Then, we'll look at how we can actually connect them. After that, we'll get into keeping secrets on what's supposed to be a public book, the whole puzzle of governance, and finally, wrap it all up with what this means for building the next digital frontier.
Okay, so what is this silo problem exactly? If you've ever tried to get two totally different database systems to talk to each other, you know the headache I'm talking about. It's a lot like that, just on a massive scale.
Basically, it means you have this incredible, diverse ecosystem of blockchains. You've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, thousands of others. But that very diversity creates a fundamental problem. They can't just work together. And this isn't just, a minor inconvenience. It's a major hurdle for mass adoption. Think about it like this. Imagine the internet existed, but you could only send emails to people who used the exact same email provider as you. It just wouldn't fly, right? It could never work at a global scale.
Okay, so if blockchains are all these separate digital islands, how do we fix that? How do we start building the bridges to connect them?
Well, the good news is the smart folks, the developers, are already on it. They're building these bridges right now. You've got things like atomic swaps, which is a fancy way of saying two people can trade assets directly from one blockchain to another with no middleman. Super cool. Then you have decentralized exchanges, or DEXs, which kind of take that idea and build whole marketplaces on top of it. And then there are these broader interchain protocols. Think of them like universal translators. They're creating the standards so completely different networks can share all sorts of complex data, not just coins. Oh, and another huge piece of this are oracles. They're like secure data feeds that plug real-world info, like stock prices or even weather data, directly into the blockchain, which just makes them infinitely more useful.
All right, so connecting chains is one massive challenge, but solving that immediately brings up the next one, privacy. See, public blockchains are transparent by design. Every single transaction is out there on a public ledger for anyone to see. And while that's fantastic for security, it's a total nightmare for any kind of confidential information.
Right? I mean, think about it. A company just can't put its trade secrets or its list of suppliers or, heck, its employee payroll onto a public ledger. It's a non-starter. So for blockchains to ever be truly adopted by big businesses, they needed some kind of powerful, new cryptographic way to keep secrets, secret.
And that key innovation? It's something called a zero-knowledge proof. Now the name, I know, it sounds super complex, but the idea behind it is actually brilliant. It's kind of like being able to prove you know the secret password to a club without ever having to actually say the password out loud to anyone. Pretty neat, huh?
So here's the bottom line, the really crucial part. These zero-knowledge proofs give you complete total privacy, while still guaranteeing the full integrity and security of the blockchain. The network can verify that a transaction is totally valid without anyone knowing who sent it, who received it, or how much was sent. For business applications, that's an absolute game changer.
Okay, which brings us to the final and maybe the trickiest piece of this puzzle, governance. I mean, if there's no CEO, no board of directors, not a single central authority, who's in charge? How in the world does a decentralized network make decisions or even upgrade itself?
Yeah, it is incredibly complex, and we've seen just how messy it can get. You just have to look at the Bitcoin scaling debates that raged for most of 2017. People just could not agree on how to upgrade the protocol, and that disagreement eventually led to the network literally splitting in two, what we call a hard fork, which is how we got Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash.
And that whole situation just perfectly illustrates the core difference, doesn't it? In a company, the boss can just send a memo and boom, the policy is changed. But a decentralized network, that's more like a digital democracy. Every single participant has a voice, and getting everyone to agree, to reach consensus, is absolutely essential, but it can be really, really difficult. It's the ultimate bottom-up, community-driven system.
So to try and solve this governance puzzle, some of the newer blockchains, like Tezos, are being built with the rules for governance baked right into the system from the get-go. Tezos calls itself a self-amending cryptographic ledger. What that really means is that the rules for how to make changes are part of the code.
This lets the blockchain evolve over time through a formal on-chain voting process. The hope is no more messy splits.
All right, so let's tie this all together. Interoperability, privacy, and governance. These aren't just, some minor technical tweaks. They are the three huge challenges that absolutely need to be solved.
Because solving them is the key to unlocking the full potential of this technology. Getting this stuff right, that's what's going to take blockchain from being this cool, fascinating niche thing for tech enthusiasts to a globally adopted platform that's as fundamental to our digital lives as the internet itself is today.
And that kind of leaves us with a really fascinating thought to chew on. As all these solutions get better and more mature, you just have to wonder, what will this next frontier actually look like if they pull it off? We could be looking at a digital world that's fundamentally more connected, more private, and, maybe even a little more fair.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to keep exploring the big ideas that are shaping our future, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one.